And welcome. We return now back to 303 and back to Craig Conrad's Unstoppable volume. We are in lesson 57 on page 220. Thank God is the name of this chapter. Let's jot down in our journals really quickly, please. One of the focus for this reading, the key to success is to be a giving person, a charitable person. Helping others out is a way to be able to grow yourself. Let's take a look at what Mr. Conrad says. By the way, he points out that at the request of this individual, only his first name is used. As teachers and parents, we give and give to our kids, never asking or expecting anything in return. However, if you don't make light of your responsibilities, your blessings will be many. My son Colton first met Ned when they worked together one summer. I was introduced to him for the first time when I was asked to take Ned to the airport. Along the way, Ned told me how impressed he was with Colton. He talked about Colton's knowledge, character, maturity level, considering his age. While thanking him, I quickly passed much of the credit on to his mother. She put her life on hold for 2 years to homeschool Colton when he was about to fall through the cracks at the public school he was attending. As we drove that morning, Ned started asking me questions about what I do. Much of it he already had heard from Colton, but he started asking me specifics. I told Ned how I was a teacher for many years, and during that time I started telling my students stories every Friday. These Friday stories had become the source of material for my speaking engagements in a book I was writing. Showing even more interest, Ned asked what I spoke about. Rather than trying to explain, I simply told him that I tell stories, and each story has a valuable lesson. I passed the time sharing some of those stories with Ned. I began with "When it's darkest, that's when the stars come out." When I finished, I could see he was quite moved by the story, and he asked to hear another one. Since we had plenty of time, I told him the "Fill Your Cup" story. Ned did more than just listen. He was taking the stories to heart. He was reacting much the same way audiences do when they hear those stories for the first time in the Unstoppable You presentations. For a time, I felt like I was giving a live presentation to a crowd of one. What I never would have guessed was that this crowd of one was perhaps the most important I would ever speak to. Most assuredly, it was the smallest. After sharing a few more stories, we stopped at a local store. Ned picked a few items up, but said, "I want to talk with you when I get back." Up until this point, I'd been doing most of the talking, so I looked forward to hearing what Ned had to say. I could never have imagined what he said to me when he got back in the car. It was proof positive that God works in mysterious ways. It was a good thing I had my seatbelt on that day, or I might have fallen over. Ned went on to explain in the most humble and genuine way that he not only believed in what I was trying to do with the Unstoppable You, but that he wanted to help me accomplish those goals. Now I was the one getting emotional. After all those years struggling to get the Unstoppable You program out there, Ned made me an offer I couldn't refuse. In return, he wanted nothing for himself except to remain anonymous. When he reached his destination, his ride had failed to show up, thank God. At that moment, Ned took out his pen and a piece of yellow paper. He wrote down all the ways he was willing to help. After he was finished, his ride showed up and he shook my hand and laughed. To the people who passed me on the way home that day, I must have seemed like I had lost my mind. I was yelling and screaming joyfully to myself and crying the whole time. While reading that piece of yellow paper, I thought about all of the things that had seemed so coincidental that led to that day. Some of those events happened years ago, like homeschooling Colton, which led to the development of his character that so impressed Ned. Yet they were all destined to lead to what had transpired that day. I thank God like never before. I also realized that I was going to be expanding my lessons far beyond my classroom walls and was going to be making some major decisions. One of those decisions would be to finish strong. Let's finish now some observations in your journals really quickly. Note, first of all, the important people in your life, just like in Mr. Conrad's life, who gave you something. I would write this down with just a few days now remaining before you graduate. Why wouldn't it make sense to try to answer this question before you graduate? You don't get to this point in your life without the help of a number of people who have given things to you, both physically as well as emotionally, spiritually, to help you, support you, provide for you. it might make sense to tell them thank you. To recognize them. To recognize their efforts and to say it matters and I understand that it matters. Finally, of course, the other question is, what about you? Are you a charitable person? Are you a giving person? Are you a person who wants others to succeed and you're willing to help? And of course, if you do anything today, it seems to me it might make sense that that be one of the goals for you. Try and identify one way that you can help. You'll remember, of course, Wordsworth said in Tintern Abbey, little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. What a compelling challenge Mr. Conrad gives to us at the conclusion. Thank you.